Well, here we are. Today it is, let's see, today is June 19th, 2024. And heading into summer, and as a lot of you know, there's not a lot of auctions going on. There's some good sales coming up in Europe that we talked about last week. And the results of a couple of them that have closed have been quite good. I want to talk about those on Friday. But one of the sales I wanted to bring up that many of you may be looking for some mischief to get into is the Sotheby sale that's coming up. I don't know if many of you noticed this auction. It's called China 5,000 Years. It's an online only sale. And of course, keep in mind, Sotheby's just cut their commissions to 20% on the buyer's premium side. So it really softens up the field for people that don't have unlimited amounts of money to spend on objects. And there's a very nice sale coming up on the 28th in New York. It's an online only sale, and a lot of the lots are unreserved, I noticed. Quite a few of them. And the ones that are reserved have just gotten a couple of bids, and whatever the reserve was is met, and it says so down in the lower right-hand corner. But I want to go through some of these because there's some good pieces in here, and I think the estimates are extremely reasonable, and the condition on a lot of them looks very good. You want to get condition reports as always, but it's a good-looking group of items, and this is the sale. This is just some of the Chinese objects that come up at the beginning. How many items in this auction? It's not a huge auction. So, and when they close online, they close at 1 minute intervals unless they're getting active bids, and then they postpone the close until all the bidding activity quiets down. But let's see, there are 125 lots in the sale, but I want you to pay attention because there's some good ones in here. One of them is this. This is a very nice carved bamboo armrest. It's 18th century Qing Dynasty, and it has no reserve. You see the no reserve button in blue right here. No reserve. That's what you want to see. The starting bid price on it, I think, was $1. I think that's where they start them, which is sort of an old-fashioned way of doing it. I like that. And right now this has 3 bids. It's up to $100. It has a $3,000 to $5,000 estimate, which is reasonable. Scholars' objects, of course, are highly collectible these days. There's a lot of people have scholars' collections, and this is a very nicely carved piece of wood, or bamboo rather. Has scroll ends on it, bats, suspicious symbols, peaches, and all this other good stuff. And the color of the wood looks very nice. It's a very warm, natural color. And it should get up there, but if it doesn't, it leaves you the chance to maybe get yourself a great buy. And that's what we all want to do. We all want to buy as moderately as we can, so we have more money to buy things spend money on something else. And if you're a dealer, you of course want to buy on the low end as much as possible. But if you're sort of a dabbler and you sort of collect and you deal, well, this is a good auction to pay close attention to. And what I would say is, again, as I've said in many videos, go through and just carpet bomb this, register and just leave bids, sort of go across the board. There's this object is very, very nice. And then there's this. This caught my eye. I thought this was a wonderful thing. It's a Marken period, deep ruby red Marken period Qinlong bowl. It's beautifully potted. It's all glass. Wonderfully finished. I love the soft finish on the surface. The mark is wheel cut into the bottom. There's a better picture of it. There it is. And this is how they do them. This is the only mark you'll ever see on these. You won't see 6-character marks. You only usually see a 4-character mark. And there are copies of these out here. They do copy the daylights out of them, but this is not one of them. Often what people, what some of the tricksters will do, they'll buy a late Qing bowl and get somebody who can do wheel cutting, and they'll put a Qinlong mark on the bottom, of course. And that's an old trick. They've been doing that since the 1920s. But this is a nice looking bowl. This is an old one. And the estimate on it is $3,000 to $5,000. It's got 14 bids so far. It has no reserve, and it's up to $1,100. It should get there. It should get up to $5,000 to $7,000. It's a very rare color. It's a beautiful color. But if you've been looking for a wonderful piece of Beijing glass, or Peking glass, as we used to call it not that long ago, this is it. It's 6 and how big is it? 6 7/8 inches in diameter. Good looking piece of glass. And then this is unreserved. It's got a few bids on it. It's got 6 bids. It's up to $600. It measures 8 3/4 inches tall. Nice looking late Ming bronze. It's got a good dark brown, almost black patina on it, but well cast. It looks like it's in good condition. Came out of a collection, I think it said, in New Jersey. It's estimated at 5,000 to 7,000, which is in the ballpark. But I got a feeling this may go for less than that. This may go for 3,000 to 5,000, which would be a good buy. But it's a very nice bronze. If you're looking for a good bronze, this is it. And pay attention in these auctions, because one of the things they do with their online sales, and I wish they did it with their live sales, they show a lot more of the piece in the photography. They do a lot more photography for their online sales, so it gives you the chance to examine the bottoms of them, where this one has been lacquered up inside, and there's no base plate on it. It looks like there may have been at one point, because I see some little spots where there was a flange perhaps, but they're often missing. It's not a big deal. But this is a good-looking little bronze, and the estimate is very reasonable. And I think I have a feeling it'll go for under that, because it's summer and a lot of people aren't paying attention. It's when other people aren't paying attention, it's the time to buy. It's like buying between Thanksgiving and Christmas. It can be a real soft spot in the antique and auction market, and you can get some great buys, especially as you get closer to the holiday of Christmas. I know some dealers have done really well buying during that period. And the same thing happens in the summer. A lot of people, like in the East Coast, people in New York and all that, they're heading for Martha's Vineyard and Cape Cod and Nantucket and the Hamptons. Of course, they're going to the Jersey Shore, and they're not paying attention. They're paying attention to their families and doing other things, and the market could be pretty friendly at this time. So here's another one. This is a very nice Femi-Vert Magpies and Prunus decorated Kangxi yellow ground vase. Beautifully done. Nice high shoulder on it. It's got an old Chait Gallery label on the bottom from New York, one of the major dealers in the world. Looks absolutely authentic. Nice looking piece of porcelain. And the estimate on it is, I think, quite reasonable, $3,000 to $5,000. It's got 3 bids. It's up to 2,000. Whatever the reserve one was, it's been met. According to down here, you'll see where it says reserve met right there. That's what you want to see down in the lower right above the bid button. But this is a good piece of porcelain. I think it'll go over that. I think it'll probably bring 5,000 to 7,000 or 6,000 to 8,000. I suspect, if people are paying attention. But if they're not, it could go for 3,000, which would be an absolute steal. So pay attention. All right, and then there's quite a few early Kangxi and transitional and Shunzi period, especially Shunzi and early Kangxi pieces. This piece, though, I think of as being more traditional, a transitional to Shunzi, not necessarily early Kangxi, but that's their opinion of it. It's a nice looking jar. It's got the kids all over it and the ladies and so forth, and it's in pretty good shape. As I recall, I think it might have had a faint hairline on one side of there it is. It's got a brief hairline near the mouth. That's it. The rest of it looks fine. It doesn't appear to have any restoration, but do check, of course. You always want to check for restoration. And it measures 11 3/4 inches tall, 11 7/8 inches. Estimated at only 4,000 to 5,000 or 4,000 to 6,000. It's got 3 bids. It's up to 2,500. It should easily sell for 5,000 or 6,000, and it could go for more. But it's a very nice example, a good crisp example with good colors, which is very important. And then this is maybe my favorite one. It's a Woodside decorated pot. I love the color, the feeling of it. I love the potting of it. It is, let's see how tall it is. This is also 11 3/4 inches tall. It has a wood cover and a stand, but they didn't photograph it for whatever reason. Here's a picture of the bottom of it. And you may, if you have books on Shunzi to Kangxi period and transitional wares, or any of the Butler books, you'll see very similarly decorated examples. I think there's one very similar to this on the cover of one of those books, actually, that they put out. This is a nice looking jar. I like the roll of the lip on it on top, and it's in quite good shape from what I can see. And the estimate on it, I think, is very, very reasonable. Again, 3,000 to 5,000. Starting bid is 1,800, which is a no-brainer. It's a good piece of porcelain. That's a nice thing. And then over to this. This is a pretty striking Kangxi vase. It measures 17 inches tall, so it's a big vase. This form you can find, sometimes they're a lot smaller. They're 10 or 12 inches. This one is 17 inches. But what caught my eye was the color. The cobalt on this thing is very nice rich sapphire blue that you want to see. Going all through the piece. It's very well painted, beautifully painted in a landscape scene with two figures crossing a bridge. It's absolutely charming, and a boatman down below heading up towards a palace or some sort of retreat in the mountains. Absolutely, and this fellow behind him is carrying supplies apparently. But it's a beautiful thing. Here's a picture of the bottom of it. You go look at the foot rims. Pay attention to the bottoms of these things. Somebody asked me if I was going to do, a number of years ago when I was first doing videos, I did a video on foot rims, and I'm going to update it. I'm working to put together some images. I'm going to use some of the ones from here to do a more extensive, sort of a relook at the bottoms of vases, because they can go a long way to helping you date things. And there are certain things you never want to see on the bottom of a vase, especially for Ming and Qing period things. They're quite identifiable, and they're very useful for dating purposes and for spotting fakes and copies and all that good stuff. So we'll work on that. But this is a beautiful vase, and I think the estimate is extremely low, and I don't know why it's so low. It's only estimated at $3,000 to $5,000. It's got a couple of bids. It's up to $2,000. To me, this looks like a $10,000 or $15,000 vase. We'll see. But if it can be bought within the estimate, I think it's an absolutely great buy. And maybe Sotheby's is cleaning out the basements. I don't know what they're doing. But this is a nice looking pot, and so is this one. This is a classic one. You see these often in auctions that turn up, they turn up over in Europe. It's pretty good size. It's 22 and, how tall is it? 22 and, tiny writing here, or my old eyes, one or the other. 22 and 5/8 inches tall. And again, it's got very good color. The cobalt on this is beautiful. The sections are all wonderfully done. All the lappet sections, these are all shaped like lappets going around it, with alternating panels of mountain landscapes and blossoming spring flowers, with the lid, no less. This is a good-looking porcelain, classic Kangxi jar. Here's the bottom of it. That's what it should look like. It's very dirty, incidentally, just so you know. If you were to clean this, a very good dealer once told me, just spray some easy off oven cleaner on there, let it sit for a while, and clean all this gunk and dirt off. Some people want the dirt on there because they think it helps validate the age of it. It doesn't really make much difference. But at any rate, if you clean this up, this would be much whiter. It would look totally different. But on the old ones, this is what they typically look like, and it's a color that they add when they're making copies to try to make them look old. They try to apply this amber tone to it. How you can tell the difference is if you spray some cleaner on it, the stuff they've applied will not wash off typically. But on the old ones, it just falls off. It's just legitimate dirt resting on the surface. But this is a beautiful pot, beautiful jar. And then over to this, the Kangxi bowl. Now, this is a nice dragon bowl, and it is Kangxi market period. It's got a hairline in it. It's not perfect. There's the hairline off the rim. But if you've been wanting one of these and you're not in the market for one for $15,000 or $20,000, which is what they often sell for, this is a good buy. There's the bottom of it with the mark. The enamels look nice. The only thing wrong with it's got a little hairline in the rim. But if you've been looking for one of these, $4,000 to $6,000, it's already got a couple of bids. The reserve is met, $4,200. I think it's probably going to bring $8,000 to $10,000, but you don't know. You never know. And if you've been looking for a good Kangxi bowl in this palette and with Dragon and Phoenix, you might want to go after that. It's a good looking thing. I like the shape of it, and the porcelain is very white. All right, and then, of course, condition reports to make sure it hasn't been repaired. And then you have this, Famille Rose Yongchen period, Marken period cup. Very lovely color, red on it. You'll notice how crisp and clean and pure the yellow is. It's not too lemony looking, and it's not too orange looking. It's exactly the right color. Beautiful shades of pink on the skirt, and then you compare them to that thickening of Famille Rose that you often see on Yongchen pieces. The rose, and sometimes on export plates, we've seen it many times, of course, where the Famille Rose is applied rather heavy, so it almost looks like it's still wet. And that's the color you get up here, that very deep color. And that's very often indicative of Yongchen workmanship. It's estimated at $4,000 to $6,000, which is well within range, and a $3,500 starting bid. I think it's probably worth a little more than that as a market period cup, but we'll see. We'll see. It may sell for the starting price. Who knows? But the reserve can't be very high because the low estimate is $4,000. All right, and then over here to this jar. This is an interesting jar. You may remember a few months ago we covered the Druid sale, and there was a sale they had that had a whole bunch of these big 1 Lee jars in it. And here's another one. This one is a really fine one, though. They made these in varying qualities. Some of them are sort of blurry and not all that good, and others are much better. And this one, you'll notice that in the bordering decoration around the side, there's a lattice pattern, and they don't often do that. Sometimes it's just painted solid blue. This one, they took the time to very meticulously paint a lattice pattern all around the cartouches, framing them very, very nicely, and it's a nice element. And there's not a lot of bleeding or diffusion of the cobalt into areas it doesn't belong. It's all very neatly done, nicely outlined. Everything is within the outlines. Good looking pot. And again, you have again pictures of the bottom. Here it is. And sometimes these are either a flat, sort of like looking like the Kangxi vase we just looked at. They can look like that, or they can have a decided foot rim on them like this one, very developed. But that's the color of the paste. This has been cleaned, I think, so you can see the paste, which is fine. It looks good, and estimated again at just 4,000 to 6,000. Should get there pretty easily, I would think, because it's actually a step above the typical Wan Li period jar. These were done sort of in the early mid part of the Wan Li period, so the quality was quite good. But this one is better than most, much better than most. And then you have a Buddha plate with the blue background that they blow on. They blow the cobalt on with straws to give it this sort of dotty effect, where it goes light and dark and so forth. And then you have this beautiful Buddha sitting with looking down with a very happy smile on his face. A good looking picture. It's a good looking face. And I like this. I like this a lot. And this type of plate you've seen if you've been collecting for any length of time. There are a number of books out there that have very similar looking plates in this style from the Kangxi period on the covers. Because they're very popular, and they were extremely popular back between 1900 and 1930. So a lot of old collections have this style of plate in it. It's estimated at 10 to 12,000 with a $9,000 opening bid, but it's a rare bird. And if you've been looking for one, that's what you're going to end up paying for it, if it's authentic. And then you have this. This is a 18th or early 19th century jar, and it's beautiful flambe decoration, and it is huge. This thing is 16 inches tall, which is very big for one of these. Normally these are sort of in the 8 to 10 inch, 12 inch range maybe. This one is much, much bigger. And the difference visually of having a 12-inch jar and a 16-inch jar, it doesn't sound like it's that much bigger. It's only 4 or 5 inches larger, but it's higher shoulders, wider, much more gutsy looking. And this is a good one. And it was, 16 inches on the nose, 40 centimeters tall, estimated at $10,000 to $15,000 with a $4,500 starting price. It's a very reasonable starting price. This is a nice piece of flambe. The flambe lines run down beautifully, and they stop just around the top of the foot. It all looks very, very nice, and you have that sort of greenish tinge that happens sometimes where the copper gets on there, and it's a little thin, and it doesn't misfire, but it's not as thick as it is down on the body, and it can turn green. And that's one of the effects of it, which I think is pleasing to look at. But it's a nice-looking big Mei Ping vase. And then over to this. Now this is a late Qing, probably Daoguan period bowl. It has a Guangxu period bowl. It has a Daoguan mark on it, but I don't think it's Daoguan, and neither do they. They think it's probably a later revival piece done during the Guangxu era, I suspect. But the color is wonderful on this thing. It's a very, very attractive bowl. It has very nice profile. The orange ground is very, very pleasing. The gilding is all in good shape. When you look at the gilding on this, you'll notice there's no wear to it. It's in beautiful, beautiful condition. The peaches have very soft, pleasing colors and so forth. And it measures 5 7/8 inches of diameter. It's a very sweet piece of porcelain. And then the center of it is done in underglazed blue. Very nicely done, very meticulously done, actually. And the estimate on it is I think, pretty reasonable, 3,000 to 5,000. But just lovely color, lovely quality, and a beautiful composition. I like it. And then hopping over to this, many of you love these pieces. They started doing them in the Song Dynasty, and they continued on into the Yuan and even into the beginning of the Ming from the Longquan kilns. And this is a nice incense burner. And if you've wanted to own, a Song original, but they can be terribly, terribly pricey with a thick glaze of this quality. Always think about the quality of the work. This is very nice quality, beautifully done. A lot of iron oxide showing up on the unglazed portion of the foot and so forth, which you should expect to see. And here you have it where it's been smoothed down, and there's the area where the iron oxide was rubbed away. They may have polished the foot on it when it was done. Nice looking glaze on the bottom, very thickly glazed. And the estimate on this is very modest, $3,000 to $5,000 with a $2,500 opening bid. So it's one of these things. If you wanted a later sung example in this quality and color, and sort of in this shape, that rounded sort of cauldron shape, they're a little different than this. It would be much more expensive. It would probably, 20, 30, 40,000. This one, $3,000 to $5,000. So again, a nice example. And if you're a Zijao buyer, some of you may remember a few months ago we talked about there was a sale that had a bunch of Zijao ware in it. And there was one that was similarly decorated to this that had sold back in 2018 for $75,000, and then it resold this year for $145,000. Well, here's one. It's a very close kissing cousin to the one that brought all that money. Very, very close. And it's estimated at just $3,000 to $5,000. The reserve has no reserve on it, and it's up to $700. So if you wanted one of these, this is something you might want to look at. This is a very nice looking jar. It looks absolutely correct and authentic. And anywhere close to this estimate is bargain. I think it may go over it, judging by what the other one brought. And it hasn't been. Somebody actually emailed me about this and wanted to know if it had been cut down because the decoration goes so close to the top. But when you look at the bowl here, you'll see that this decoration, the iron brown decoration they used, goes over the rim. Okay, and if it was ground down in any way, this would be gone. But they just painted it very, very close to the top of the pot. That's all that happened here. So this is not they wanted to know if this looked like it had been reduced in height because there's not much space between there and the top. It isn't. It's absolutely original. It's just the way the artist did it. He had sort of a heavy brush maybe, but nicely done. Very, very nicely done. And then over to this. If you ever wanted to own a nice silver cup from the Tang Dynasty, here is one. $3,500 starting price with a $4,000 to $6,000 estimate. It looks fine. It's rather dull, of course, because it's 1,500 years old, but wonderful piece of silver. I particularly like the leaf on the handle with the scrolls coming off. There are two leaves here. And what they did was they curled the stem from the one leaf here, and then the other leaf running down here, and they curled the stem to that there. So it really worked well, and it ties in very nicely with the overall decoration on the cup itself, which is all vines and leaves. And I don't see any damage to it. It looks very good. And the estimate is just $4,000 to $6,000 with a $3,500 starting price. It could go for more than this. It could bring $10,000 to $15,000. But if you wanted to own a Tang silver cup, this is it. And there are a lot of fakes of these around in the market. They turn up on eBay and live auctioneers and Invaluable all the time. They're pretty easy to spot. But this one looks absolutely fine. It has an undisturbed surface, nice old surface on it. Something worth looking at. And then hopping on, there's only a couple more things here. Is this the robe? This is an unreserved robe, Qing Dynasty, and it looks like it's in quite good shape with that beautiful apricot ground and the very heavy sleeves. The sleeves are unusually wide for a Qing robe. I'm not quite sure why, but that's the way it was made, obviously, because of the hair. And the decoration on the sleeves looks absolutely proper. So occasionally they did rework these. Occasionally when robes were out, especially when Westerners got them, they would sometimes take them to a tailor and have sleeves edited and modified a little bit here and there. There's been a number of dealers that have actually written about that phenomenon. And of course, when they sent Qing robes to the monasteries in Tibet, they completely took them apart and reassembled them to their own taste. But here you have this. This is a nice looking robe. The estimate on it is very reasonable, $6,000 to $8,000. I think it should bring more than that. It's got 8 bids on it. It's only up to $400. Didn't have a reserve on it. Worth looking at. And then if you're looking for some very nice furniture, if you live in the New York area, and you're looking for a couple of great tables to put in your house, these are it. These are beautiful, beautiful tables. And they have almost an English look to them with the cabriole legs and the ball and claw feet on them. But these are Chinese. And they're dating the Qing Dynasty, Banzhao, tables. Let's see, corner leg tables. Let's see, how big are these? These are 34 inches in height, 87 centimeters in height. In other words, 44 inches wide each. So they're 3.5 feet wide. They're the right height. They're beautiful console tables, and they're $8,000 to $10,000 estimate with a starting price of $7,000. $3,500 a table is pretty reasonable, plus the buyer's premium for these. These are beautifully done, and let's see what else. They have jade insets in them as well. They're inlaid with jade panels on the sides, which makes quite a difference, I think, in the value. If they didn't have the jade insets, the tables would be worth about probably $2,000 or $3,000 less for the pair. But at $8,000 to $10,000 with jade insets and probably first half of the 19th century, these are very, very nice. But if you're interested in these, maybe call and get a specialist at Sotheby's on the phone and ask them for a bit more details on their opinion of the dating. But they look to be mid-19th century or maybe a little earlier. And then this is very nice. This is a piece of it's agar wood, but they in China they call it Chen Jianning Mu. And these do turn up, and they bring good money. Agar wood is extremely expensive wood. It's one of the most expensive woods in the world. It's certainly on a par with zeton or any of those exotics. And one had come through Sotheby's not that long ago. This was, I think, like a year or two ago. Another landscape libation cut, 18th to the 19th century, and it sold for 5,290 pounds, which is around $6,000 or so dollars. So the estimate on this is well within range at $6,000 to $8,000. It's pretty good size. It's 18th or 19th century also. The shape is nice. Of course, it's done very much in the manner of what you expect to see in rhino horn cups. It's the same style, same general form and so forth. But this one is in agar wood. And agar wood, of course, is extremely rare. And big pieces of it are even rarer still. And it's the core of the tree, the heart of the tree, and they take forever to grow. And there's all kinds of restrictions now in the importation and exportation of agar wood. And there's a lot of wood being sold, carved wood, on the internet that's been stained to look like agar wood. It's not agar wood. It has a very distinctive smell to it. And this is one of them. I'm sure they checked it out pretty thoroughly. It's got a $5,000 opening bid. $6,000 to $8,000 is the estimate. That seems reasonable. It's a nice example. I think it's certainly as good as the last one that sold. These beautiful pine trees on the ends and so forth, and it's just a beautiful little cup. So that's about it. All right. So if you're looking for something to get into, check this sale out. It's a good looking auction. And I don't think there's going to be, well, there'll be people around bidding on it, of course, there always are. But you may have a chance at getting some better bargains than you're used to. And you're getting them, from them, and you can pick them up or get them shipped from the city however you want. And do it that way. There's some jades in here as well. They're okay. They're perfectly good. There's some dewa. There's a bunch of bronzes and so forth. And there's a very rare set of books. It's going to bring a lot of money. It's the porcelain of the National Palace Museum that was published in Hong Kong between 1961 and 1969. They printed a new editions every year, and it was estimated at just $3,000 to $5,000. And the current bid is already up to $4,200. This set's probably going to bring $8,000 to $12,000, I expect. It's a very, very rare set. It was put up with no reserve. Here it is, and they released a certain number of volumes every year. It's a lot of it's in color, and it's a beautiful set. I don't have this set. I would love to, but I've never been able to get my hands on it because the prices always seem to jump so much. Any rate, and this came from a South Carolina collection, and it was sold at Sotheby's. It says here they sold it in 2022. It was lot 805. So you can go back to that sale and check it out and see what they brought back then. But they tend to bring significant amounts of money. But at any rate, the rest of the sale looks very, very good. Some nice examples. Take a shot, register, get the condition reports. You got time. The sale's on the 28th of this month, so you've got about 9 days to get what you need, get registered, and I would go through here and just leave bids that you're comfortable with, that you'd be thrilled to buy it for, and see what happens. I've gotten a lot of emails from people that have followed that strategy and been absolutely thrilled with the things they've picked up for next to nothing. I heard from a couple of people actually this week that did it. I was very happy for them. It does work. All right. Have a great week. We'll see. I'll be back on Friday with a regular video, but I just wanted to get this in here to give everybody something to do because right now there's not a lot of sales here in the U.S. There's a few. Leland Little's got a sales coming up we're going to talk about on Friday. Brunk seems sort of quiet right now. There's this, but Bonhams has a series of sales coming up that are online and so forth you want to check out that we've already talked about, but it's not as active as it was a couple of months ago, of course. All right. Have a great day, and I hope you're all enjoying your summer. It's hotter than the hinges of Hades here today. It's about 90 degrees. All right. Bye-bye.